Mary Kirk stood before the gathering with a weight in her chest that words could hardly carry. Her brother, Charlie, had been more than a public figure to her. To the world, he was a name tied to political movements, to speeches, to rallies, to debates that stirred the nation. But to her, Charlie was simply her brother, the boy who once teased her at the dinner table, the young man who stood by her when she needed encouragement, the presence in her life that gave her both comfort and challenge. In that moment, as she prepared to speak her farewell, Mary realized that what the world saw was only one version of Charlie. What she held within her heart was a story of love, loyalty, and a bond that even death could not fully sever. She began with the simple truth. Her brother was not perfect, but he was deeply human. He carried a fire inside him that sometimes burned too hot, a passion that often led him into conflict, but also made him stand unwaveringly for what he believed in. Mary shared that this same fire was not confined to politics or public platforms. At home, it was in the way Charlie defended his family, in how he reminded her that strength was not about how loud one could speak, but how much one was willing to endure for the people they loved. As the funeral crowd listened, Mary's voice trembled when she spoke about their childhood. She recalled long summer afternoons when they would ride bikes until the sun disappeared, racing one another down the street, with Charlie always insisting on being the faster one. She remembered moments when he would sneak into her room to share secrets, dreams, and frustrations that only siblings could truly understand. The man the world knew as Charlie Kirk had once been the boy who made her laugh uncontrollably, who stole the last cookie, who promised her that no matter where life took them, he would never stop looking out for her. The truth she revealed was painful. Beneath the layers of his public image, Charlie was a man who carried burdens the world rarely saw. The expectations placed upon him were heavy, and though he carried them with apparent confidence, he often confided in her about the pressure. Mary described how he longed for simplicity in moments when the noise of the world grew too loud. He loved quiet dinners, family gatherings where politics were left at the door, and nights spent reflecting rather than performing. She revealed that his greatest joy was not in the applause of crowds, but in the quiet affirmation of knowing his family stood by him. Mary paused as she spoke about the last time she saw him alive. She replayed every word, every glance, every shared silence. It was a memory now carved into her soul, one that would forever echo with both gratitude and regret. Gratitude for the love that was always present between them, regret that time had slipped away too quickly. She wanted those gathered to know that while Charlie's name may live on in headlines, the truest legacy he left was not in politics or public speeches, but in the lives he touched quietly, behind the scenes, without recognition or cameras. Her tribute was not just about mourning, but about honoring. Mary described her brother as someone who was unafraid to live loudly, but who also craved intimacy in his closest relationships. He loved fiercely, sometimes imperfectly, but always sincerely. She spoke of his ability to forgive, to move past differences, and to remind those around him that family ties mattered more than disagreements. In a world where division often ruled, Charlie never let it fracture his love for his sister. As Mary's voice grew softer, she spoke of their last conversation about the future. Charlie had dreams that extended beyond politics. He wanted to write, to spend more time near family, to create moments of peace in the midst of chaos. He told her he hoped one day they could sit on a porch together, years from now, looking back at everything they had endured, laughing about how far they had come. That dream, now unfulfilled, was the truth that hurt her the most. Death had interrupted their story, leaving her with words unsaid and memories unfinished. She did not shy away from addressing the cause of his death, though her voice faltered. It was not just the silence of his absence that pained her, but the reality that life can be taken in an instant, no matter how much someone is loved. Mary acknowledged that while the public may seek explanations for her, the cause was secondary to the loss itself. What mattered most was that her brother was gone, and no headline or debate could ever capture the depth of that emptiness. Her farewell carried the weight of a sister's grief, but also the resilience of someone determined to keep her brother's spirit alive. She promised that she would tell his story honestly, not just the version the public knew, but the version only a sister could tell. She wanted people to remember that Charlie was not only a leader or a controversial figure, but a son, a brother, a friend. He was someone who made mistakes, learned, stumbled, and stood up again. He was someone who laughed loudly, argued passionately, and loved deeply. Mary spoke about the values Charlie left her with. He taught her to be brave in the face of criticism, to never apologize for standing by her convictions, and to always protect those she loved. These lessons, she said, were not just political in nature, but deeply personal. They were lessons about how to live a life of courage, even when the world tried to silence you. In closing, Mary's eyes welled with tears as she turned toward her brother's casket. She whispered words of goodbye, words she hoped he could hear somehow, wherever he was. She told him she loved him, that she would miss him every day, and that she would carry his memory not as a burden, but as a light to guide her forward. She urged everyone listening to hold their loved ones closer, to never take time for granted, and to remember that behind every public figure is a family, a story, and a heart that beats with love and pain just like anyone else's. When Mary stepped away, there was a silence that seemed to stretch into eternity. It was the silence of people realizing that they had not just lost a figure on a stage, but a brother, a son, a human being whose life mattered deeply. Mary's tribute had pulled back the curtain, showing the man beneath the name, and in doing so, she had given the world a gift, the chance to remember Charlie Kirk not only for what he did, but for who he was. As the service came to a close, Mary stood among her family, comforted by their embrace, yet still weighed down by grief. She knew the days ahead would not be easy. She would wake up each morning wishing she could call her brother, wishing she could hear his voice again. But she also knew that within her heart, his spirit would never leave. Every lesson he taught her, every moment they shared, every fight, every laugh, every tear, they were all pieces of a bond that not even death could shatter. Her tribute was more than a speech. It was a promise to remember him not as the world defined him, but as she knew him. A promise to keep his story alive. A promise that love, even in the face of loss, would endure. And as she left that place of mourning, Mary carried with her the painful truth and enduring light of her brother's life, a light that would continue to shine through her for as long as she lived.